Hey y'all, today we're talking about 7 limiting beliefs and the ways that you can overcome them. Number 1, I am irredeemable. This is the notion that a lot of us get, that we're unforgivable, that we've done things that cannot be redeemed, or that things have been done to us which have made us unworthy, unforgivable, unlovable, whatever. You are not the things you've done, and you are not the things that have happened to you. Do you hear me? You are not the things that have happened to you. The rather unfortunate, for some of us, flip side of this is that no one, no human, even the most despicably behaved ones, aren't redeemable either. The good news is this naturally requires us to question justified anger and righteous rage. If we're all redeemable, yes, all, then that sort of leaves anger out in the cold as a useless answer to any problem. Okay, so how do we overcome this? Well, it's pretty simple. The limiting belief of I am irredeemable is overcomeable by developing a redeemable pattern of behavior. We create self-esteem by esteemable acts. So if you feel like you've created an erroneous life that just can't be righted or turned around, then you're going to have to start behaving like someone who never did or said those things. It doesn't mean staying in denial. It doesn't mean not correcting them. It just means that you've got to turn around. You've got to do an about face, a 180 in the middle of the road, and go in another direction. Sometimes you correct with that person directly. Sometimes you correct going forward with other people, and there are other options. But if your limiting belief is primarily that you are irredeemable, just know that it's not true. Number 2, I am unworthy. A lot of us have this manifest in the notion of imposter syndrome. We're incredibly talented, able, and uniquely capable individuals, and yet we feel as though we're fake, we're not real, we're not good enough to deliver a message, create a project, do whatever it is that we dream of, because of this really bizarre notion that so many of us get that we're imposters if we're not perfect all the time. I have news for you. You are a human being, and not a single one of us is perfect. Sometimes, and maybe even especially the ones who seem the most to have it all together, don't at all. Anyone that you find particularly inspirational or motivational, you're going to find flaws with. Don't look too closely at anyone, or you will not like what you see. There are one of two types of people who seem like they have it all together and are perfect all the time. Either that's more or less true, and they're so far on the other side of the veil and have been there so long and go there so often that they are genuinely peaceful, good human beings almost all the time because they're barely here on human earth. Or they're hiding those more human and flawed parts of themselves because perhaps they think it would lessen the impactfulness of their message. There's a power in authenticity and vulnerability. This idea of I am unworthy is limiting because it means that you think good things will happen for them, but not for me. It's like punching somebody in the face and then complaining about their bloody nose dripping all over the carpet, except that somebody is you. So how do we overcome the limiting belief of I'm unworthy? Well, we create an environment of worth. We remove, just like surgery, anyone and anything that does not support feelings of worth, worthiness. And we add new people and things that do. We eject the old tapes and make new ones. This can be in the form of affirmations, meditation, turning our focus completely. You don't have to suddenly believe you're worthy. It doesn't happen that quickly. But you can act like you believe it. You can say it until it feels true. You can put Post-its all over your house. I stand naked in the mirror every day and I tell my body how grateful I am for it. And I tell it that I'm so glad it's healthy. And I tell it that I'm so glad it's beautiful and perfect and that there's not any extra fat cells on it and that I know it's going to continue to work in my favor. Whether these things are true in my current reality matters not at all. The third limiting belief we'll discuss here today is that I cannot overcome anger or sadness, whatever. Anger is never anger. Anger does not exist. Anger is the easiest emotion to grasp when we are deeply hurt or feeling some other negative emotion, because at least then we are feeling. It's why people who suffer from extreme depression so often are overcome with anger. Aside from all the chemical implications of not having correct balances or reuptake of serotonin, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, dopamine, and other feel-good hormones, or perhaps burned out neural pathways so that those can interact in such a way that they serve you rather than harm you. Anger exists because it makes us feel more powerful than acknowledging what's really going on. Anger is only the absence of something else, not the presence of itself. That absence is usually fear, which is only composed of two things itself. Fear boils down to either I won't get what I want or I will lose what I already have. That's it. So how do we overcome this limiting belief that I cannot overcome anger? Well, we get really busy with literally anything else, and sometimes it requires professional help in the form of quite a number of different options. A lot of people misapply the law of attraction and other similar philosophies to mean that we don't utilize tools that are readily available to us. It'd be like standing over a place on earth where you need to dig a hole for whatever reason, and not using a shovel, not asking anyone for help, so forth, because you think that you can just stand there and attract a hole to you. If you have extreme anger or depression or any of these other clinically significant things, you might need professional help, and there's nothing wrong with that. Have you ever spent a significant amount of time around a baby? It takes almost nothing to make them happy. You tickle their toes and they laugh like it's the best thing they've ever seen. One way to begin overcoming anger is to become childlike again and do those things which bring you pure joy effortlessly. Number 4, where I am is too far from where I want to be to ever get there. This is a limiting belief because that just isn't the truth. If I decided right now I have to go to Australia, I must be there in the next hour, depending on your mindset and the way you look at things, you might tell me that's not possible. But when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. I could be in Australia right now through FaceTime, through text. If where you are is too far from where you want to be, you just have to change the mode of transportation you're using. You might be slogging through the snow on foot when really you just need a plane ticket. So how do we overcome this? Well, it's the same way that we overcome needing to travel. You find a different method that's faster and more efficient than the one you're using now. And then all of a sudden, where you are is not far from where you need to be at all. Number 5 on our limiting beliefs list is, I don't know my purpose. Have you ever just taken a drive somewhere, anywhere, and found that you ended up having a really exciting adventure? Or better yet, gotten lost when you definitely were on your way somewhere and ended up doing or seeing or finding or meeting really cool people or places or things? That's how you figure out your purpose. You have an emotional GPS installed and it is perfect. All the time, every time. Things that don't make you feel good aren't what you're supposed to be doing. Well, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that if you have a child who throws tantrums, you set them outside and hope that they get raised in the wilderness. But it means that when you feel that disconnect, when you feel that deep emotional dissatisfaction from what you are doing, saying, and thinking, you know that you're not on the right track. It's more like eliminating all the things that are wrong for you than it is searching out which thing is right for you. If you have a loss of your sense of purpose, and this is the belief that's limiting you, all you need to do is suss out all the things that aren't your purpose, and your purpose will become clear. Number 6 on our list is, I just have bad luck. You don't have bad luck. You're going in the wrong direction. It's as simple as turning around. I tell my son all the time that there's an emotional scale of behavior, and there's a no end and a yes end. And so this looks like perhaps he's trying to earn a new toy or something that he'd like. If his behavior starts to deteriorate or devolve towards the no end, which might look like tantrums or whatever, I warn him, you're at a yes and you're heading towards a no. Having bad luck is the universe telling you you're heading towards a no. You're going in the wrong direction. Turn around. So how do you overcome that? Well, just like overcoming the last thing of not knowing your purpose would require getting a map, overcoming feeling like you have bad luck means you have to take accountability for every single thing in your life. Does this mean that there aren't people who don't treat you wrongly and things that aren't fair? Of course not. Those things might exist, but if that's what you focus on, you're just going to get more of that. It's kind of like this. Say I spilled some milk. Shame sounds like I'm such a bad person for spilling this milk. Guilt sounds like I should have never spilled this milk, and I'm going to spend all my time thinking about how wrong it was that I did. Blame sounds like I wouldn't have spilled this milk if you weren't bothering me while I was trying to pour it. Responsibility sounds like it's my fault I spilled the milk. But the most powerful position from which to overcome the limiting belief of having bad luck is accountability, which is different than all the other things. Accountability sounds like I spilled the milk, but I'm going to clean it up and I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to move on to my next task. And having spilled the milk will learn me something, teach me something, which I guess is like learning myself something about how I want to deal with the milk in the future. Accountability is the most powerful position from which you can approach the feeling of having bad luck and the ways in which it limits you. And it's very different than shame, guilt, blame, and even taking responsibility. Accountability says, yeah, this happened, but I'm moving forward and I'm going to do what I can to see if I can keep it from happening again. Our 7th and final limiting belief is that my health, wealth, relationships, so forth have nothing to do with my spirit. That these things are somehow not connected or related. This is the most wrong thing I could possibly imagine because it is all connected. Our thoughts create our beliefs, which create our emotions, which drive our behaviors, which turn into habits, which can lead to miserable lives. It's like having a totaled car that you've wrecked into a tree and somebody saying, well, God, do you need a tow truck? And you saying, no. And somebody saying, well, okay, do you need a mechanic? And you saying, no. And somebody saying, a body shop? Do you need a body shop? And you saying, no, I need a manicure. Thinking that anything that you want or any desirable state of mental, physical, or spiritual well-being isn't interconnected is kind of the worst thing you can do for yourself. Nothing outside of you can affect you, which might sound really, really bizarre to those of us who are still privy to the last idea of I have bad luck. So how do we overcome this limiting belief of disconnectedness? Well, if what you're doing is working, keep on doing it and you'll get the same results. But if what you're doing isn't working for you, you won't change until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. And nobody can make you do this. I can't tell you how many people that I've worked with who tell me all about their miserable lives, all about the problem. And I understand. I've been there. But the minute I try to tell them some of what the solution might be, they immediately return back to the problem, back to the issues, back to the story that is so true and so real and so painful in that moment that they don't want to see the solution. Because for some of us, chaos and pain are much more comfortable, if only via their familiarity. There are a lot of things that are painful. Having a baby, running a marathon, overcoming cancer, but they're worth it. Pain is a touchstone of spiritual growth, but it doesn't always have to hurt.